Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to share with you my Code Talker / Cyberse deck profile or update, whatever you like to call it. With the release of Firewall Dragon off the ban list finally from Ghost in the Past, being released, I finally have a list for you, made for you after I test things out and kind of like have something that I feel like most comfortable with after testing all the ratios and such. Now, of course, you can change things depending on what you like specifically, but this is a list that I feel really comfortable with, and I think it's pretty good overall. And the deck is really fun, so if you have the cards lying around, I recommend you to pick them up and play with them. And it's probably, I would say, one of my top 10 favorite decks. It's just a really fun thing with the old combo sequence of Code Talkers. But before we jump right into the list itself, I'm going to basically remind you the usual thing, that if you want to help the channel and see more videos like this, and just in general, let me know what you think in the comments down below, please do all of those things. A like, a comment, or even a sub will be muchly appreciated. And I like to hear from you all, and also, it's really keeping me motivating me up to see people are actually enjoying what I create. But without further ado, let's jump right into the list itself. So jumping right into the list, we're going to start things off with the mini codes. And for the mini codes, I like to run triple copies of Microcoder, double copies of Code Generator, and then one copy of Code Radiator. This is kind of like the nice split of these that I like to run, which is 3, 2, 1. And these all are very nice monsters which share the following effect. Basically, all of these, if you control a Cyberse monster that is going to be used for a link summon of a Code Talker monster, are able to use their effect to use themselves also from the hand for the link summon. Now, these can also be used in multiples. So for example, if you open up with microcode and you normal summon, for example, a Lady Debug, you could turn a microcode and a Lady Debug into a Code Talker with this in your hand, of course, be used in material. But let's say you also want to link free, you could use a microcoder, a Code Generator, and a Lady Debug on the field to summon, for example, a Code Talker. As long as you have a Cyberse monster in the field, you can use one of these or more. Of course, limited for harder ones per turn for each card, of course. But the point is, you could use multiple for the same one, which I don't really see a lot of people mentioning that. You could do that. It's just something that doesn't really happen. But what do these cards do individually? Well, if these cards are basically used as a material for a Code Talker monster and sent to the graveyard, you're able to basically get the following effect, that you search a Sign It monster. Oh, should I say Sign It spell and trap from your deck to your hand. But if you use this from the field, you're also able instead to search a level 4 or lower Cyberse monster. Most of the time, it doesn't really matter. You mostly want to search your Sign It spells and traps, but it should be mentioned regardless. In the case of Code Generator, same idea. From the hand, it's allowing you to Foolish Barrel a Cyberse monster with 1200 attack or less. And then if you use it from the field, you're able to also, instead of that, to add to your hand that monster instead of Foolish Barreling it and sending it to the graveyard. So again, something that you mostly don't care about, but still something that should be mentioned. In a case of Code Radiator, however, his effect is the only one that I feel like improves the most and does matter, because in the case of Code Radiator, if you use it from the hand, he's allowing you to target one monster your opponent control, change the attack to 0, and then negate his effect. But if you use it from the field, he can target 2, which is really good. So for the most part, these don't really matter. You're mostly going to use them from the hand, but it's nice to know that they have an additional benefit when you use them from the field. Code Radiator, definitely the worst one out of the 3. You'd only need the 1. But if you want to run more than these, you're more than welcome to. This one is definitely a 3-off mandatory, and you have to run it. But for the rest, it's up to you. I just, like I said in the beginning, like to run the 3-2-1 split. But these are your Code Talkers, and now for our other Cyberse monsters, we're going to jump into the multiples first, which are 3 copies of Lady Debug, 3 copies of, Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, and then the double copies of Parallel Exceed. These are the multiple copies that you want to run of cards that are not like, your one-offs, which we'll get to them in a second. But for the case of what they do, Lady Debug is pretty simple. Normal or special summon, you search a Cyberse monster level 3 or lower. Very good, giving you a lot of flexibility, and you can also sometimes special summon it in middle combo without using it as your normal summon. So also, again, another kind of nice flexibility card. In the case of Ibli, however, not only this card is important right now because it's kind of like facilitate your lock, and important to run at 3. But because of the fact that we have this card right now, back from the list, with his errata version, we are sometimes able to summon this out of our hand in middle combo or the end of the combo to then just to essentially lock our opponent with the Ibli lock, which is very, very good. So for anybody who don't know what the Ibli lock does, it's prevent any you or your opponent who's own it at the time to not summon anything but link monsters. So if you extra link your opponent and summon this to your opponent, if they don't have the ability to remove this card, which also there's another way to kind of improve this lock, if they don't have a way to remove this card, you basically lock them out of their extra deck, which is pretty awesome. So that's really cool. And like I said, this one is really important to open up sometimes and not search into it, because this is also just a very nice anti-Nibiru card as well. So that's really important to mention. And then the double copies of Peril Exceed, a searchable card, very, very good. You summon one, you summon the other one out of your deck. You all know what Peril Exceed does, so really cool. But because of the fact that we have so many search abilities for this card, you only need the two, because you don't really want to run way too many of these and see them in your hand when you don't have to. But that's pretty much does it for the multiples. Now for the one-offs of Cyberse monsters. Honestly, you can cut out some of these down if you don't like them. But for what I like to run, we're going to start with the Special Summoners ones first. Gachiri Adignister, Scriptron, Backup Secretary, Sea Archiver, Cyberse Converter, Cross Debug, Link Infraflyer. These are the free special summon ones. These are all have their effective free special summon themselves depending on some particular conditions. Backup Secretary and Converter do the same thing if you control a Cyberse free special summon. Link Infraflyer, if you have a zone open, you free special summon this. Cross Debug, if you control two Link monsters, free special summon this. Is also have a nice effect in the graveyard. And the fact that it's also another Dark actually does come up, because sometimes you do need to search with Signet Codec another so-called Dark Extender that is not Ibli, so having this is actually really good. You can always cut this down, but you can do what you want to. In the case of Sea Archiver, you summon a monster to a zone and Link monster points to. You can summon this out of your hand or graveyard, which is really good. Scriptron, you banish a card out of your graveyard, free special summon, and then you can banish a Cyberse special summon, and then if you use it for a Link material for a Link monster, you're able to return that monster back, so that's kind of like you didn't really lose the resources to begin with. And then Gachiri, you negate a monster effect, special summon it, and then if it's used from the field, you can target one of your monsters and then give it protection, which is really good. So these are all your free special summons. And then for those that are non-special summons but still pretty important, or not special summon like the other Cyberse Gadget, Format Skipper, and Dot Scaper. This is not a special summon like the other because they need to be ditched to the graveyard to special summon itself. It can also be banished if you really want to special summon, but you can only use one of the effects per turn and only once each of the effects per duel, so it should be mentioned for that. Format Skipper is a card that you summon during middle of your combo with the Code Talker inverted, which we'll get to it, because you use Signet Codec to search this. And then, you kind of just special summon it out of your hand, and then it's also search your level 5 or higher Cyberse monsters, which is really good. And then Cyberse Gadget, if you have a level 2 in your hand and assign it mining, you're able to discard it, search this, and this has become just a link 2, or should I say a link 3, on just one card, which is insane, because this is summoned at level 2 or lower back, and also giving you a token after it's being used. So this card is really, really powerful, and just a very, very good one-off. But that's pretty much does it for the monsters. No hand traps, because I do run power spells instead of hand traps, which we'll get to those. But for the spells themselves, I like to run triple copies of Signet Mining, obvious, triple copies of Signet Codec, one copy of Signet Optimization, and then the one copy of Solomon Great Sanctuary. Solomon Great Sanctuary is the card that allowing you to do the full lock again, because Master Rule 5 changed that Master Rule 4 not able, with Master Rule 4, when we extra link, they cannot do anything with the Ibli anyway. But with the Master Rule 5, if they're able to crash the Ibli, they're just basically not locked out of the extra deck because they can fusion, synchro, or exceed. So, with the effect of this card, the secondary effect of this is that during damage calculation, you're able to target one of your Link monsters, pay 1,000 life points, and then turn its original attack to 0. Its attack to 0 permanently, unfortunately, but gain life equal to his original attack is really, really good, because you're able to turn the monsters that Ibli tries to attack into 0, and then nothing happens, because when 0 attack monsters clash with each other, nothing happens, so that's really, really good. Then in the case of the rest of these cards, which are searchable by microcoder, Silent Mining, pretty self-explanatory. You discard a card, search any level 4 or lower Cyberse monster. I like to discard most of the time level 2 or lower Cyberse monsters and search Gadget to have a very, very good normal summon, but again, it's dependent on the rest of my hand. Signet Codec, the most important card out of your deck. Every time you link summon a Code Talker monster, you're able to search once per turn for its attributes. So for example, let's say I summon a Dark Code Talker, I search a Dark, then summon a Light, I search a Light, then summon an Earth, I search an Earth, but if I summon a Dark again, I'm not able to search another Dark Cyberse monster. So this card is really good. You're able to search from 3 to 5 a turn. This card is the card that basically allowing you to even play, and we have 10 copies of this in the deck essentially, with the 3 microcoder, the 3 Signet Codec, itself, the 3 copies of Silent Mining, and then the 1 copy of Terraforming. Seeing this card is very, very important. And then Silent Optimization, giving your Code Talker monsters being Armedices, or should I say Armedis-like monsters, but what you care about is that this is an additional normal summon, which sometimes come up and very, very important with Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, plus this is another card you can search with instead of Signet Codec if you have it in your hand with microcode, so that's really cool. But that does it for those, and then for the rest of the spells, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 for 1 Cold Bitter Grave, and then triple copies of Dark Ruler No More. This is my power spell. Honestly, you can cut this to be whatever you want to, or some of the other extenders and play whatever you want to. You can even cut Cold Bitter Grave, can cut 2 of the Cyberse extenders, can cut whatever you feel like is just necessary, and just play with it. But this kind of like for my pocket meta was the only card that I needed. And also, I just don't really have the money for Forbidden Droplets, so this is the only card that you could play. And still very, very good, because you're able to kind of like negate everything your opponent have, then summon an access code, and then just deal with them. So, you know, this is a very, very good card and very, very powerful. Cold Bitter Grave, I normally don't like to run this card generally, but this is a very heavy combo deck, so the one-off copy is important. 1 for 1 is for the codec, Monster Reborn is Monster Reborn, and then Foolish Burial is just freaking Foolish Burial, just good with a lot of cards like Sea Archiver, Scriptron, the Dotscaper, and then the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli if you need to Foolish Burial it, and then special summon it back with a Splash Mage, so that's really good for that. And then for the trap, and the only trap that we run on the deck, 1 copy of Signet Conflict, a searchable card by Microcoder. If you need this, you search this if they're using your Signet codec, so that's really good as a one-off and a very, very good counter trap as a whole. But that's pretty much does it for the main deck. Now we'll move on into the extra deck. And for the extra deck, starting with the Link 1s, Link 1 package, 1 copy of Lingaribo, double copies of Baleonix, and then the 1 copy of Talkback Lancer. Honestly, if it was up to me, for the 16th card in the extra deck, I would run Link Devotee because it's really good. But unfortunately, we don't have the ability to run 16 cards. We can only run 15. But these do what they need to do for the Link 1s. Baleonix is just a very, very good card because you're able to, for example, turn a Corruptor Ibli into this, and then at the end of the combo still have another one to be used. So that's really important to play too, because you can turn any level 4 or lower Cyberse monster you want to into like a Link monster if you need to, as well as just generally very, very important to these zones. In the case of Lingaribo, just a very, very nice card. You could cut this down if you want to, but the point is like if you have a leftover extender, sometimes you have that. This is a very, very good card to just end off, like linking that off and getting a protection for things like evenly matched. And then Talkback Lancer, you can only use level 2 or lower Cyberse monsters for his summon, so that's why I run a lot more than I usually run, for also the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli to be able to search or special summon this. This one allowing you to tribute any Cyberse monster you control, and then target a Code Talker monster with a different name from the monster attributed if it is a Code Talker monster, and then special summon to a zone that it points to. So it's kind of like allowing you, if you have 2 monsters here, and then any monster to tribute, you basically summon the Talkback Lancer, you tribute that monster, summon, for example, back a Transcode Talker, and then you have another extender, and you basically make the lock, which is really good. So Talkback Lancer, very, very important card, and very, very important for the combo. And then for the Link 2s, Sploosh Mage, Code Talker Inverted, Code Talker Normal, and then Update Jammer. Update Jammer, just a good card for OTKs, don't really need to explain that one that much. Code Talker doesn't really do anything, it's just here for being a dark name. Code Talker Inverted, however, this one is very, very important. Now, this one need to be mentioned that it has 2 particular things that you need to understand, is that this card when you use this effect to basically special summon a Cyberse monster from your hand, two things need to happen. He need to be in the main monster zones, because otherwise you're not able to summon, because you need to summon to a zone this cards point to. And B, if you do not have a target in your hand when you activate this effect, this will not work. So you need to also have a target with, a Cyberse target in your hand to then use this effect. But mostly what I like to do if I have a Cyberse target in my hand that I want to special summon or able to special summon it by itself, I basically use this one as a Chainlink 1, Cynet Codec as a Chainlink 2, search whatever I need, which could be a format skip or Lady Debug or whatever, and then use this card as, after I got the other target in my hand and special summon the other target, and then just continue off. And then Splash Mage is just a monster reborn for Cyberse if you need to, for example, revive your Ibli and such, so that's kind of good. Then for the link freeze, shooting code, X code, and double transcode. These are just here mostly for, being different, attributes. At least in the case of shooting code. Shooting code, honestly, doesn't really do that much, but still does come up sometimes with this effect. Mostly doesn't, but these two are the more important ones. Transcode is absolutely amazing. Very, very good Cyberse monster, and just generally like an absolutely insane card. You want to play two of these. It's really important for also grind games such. So if your opponent breaks your board but still not able to kill you, you're sometimes able to summon a second transcode, and then summon, like, for example, an Xcode Talker in your graveyard or something, depending on what you have in your extra deck, and sometimes just win with that, which is ridiculous. Xcode, just a really good card with arrows, also able to lock on zone, which does come up sometimes, and also giving you protection from destruction, and this one giving you protection from targeting, depending on, cards that they point to and all that such. I recommend you to read these cards yourself, just because I want to be 100% just to understand what these do for intricate. But then for the link fours, one copy of Proxy Access Code, unfortunately, one copy of Firewall, and one copy of Mekk-Knight Crusadia Evermax. Unfortunately, I have to proxy this. I don't own it specifically, but 100% you have to run access code. This is not because of the fact that, access code is because of the so-called, it's just a really good card, but because of the fact that access code is just really fundamental for this deck. It really comes up that sometimes you use this as your second dark Code Talker monster, that basically giving you the search for Ibli to even end your board, which you will see in one of the combos. So it does come up very, very much so. In some particular fringe hands, so you do need that for that, but also just a good OTK machine, so that's really, really important for that. In the case of Firewall, this card became the next, the common link 4 that you summon, because of the fact that this is generic, which is really, really good. It also have the very nice effect to get something out of your hand. It doesn't really happen that much often, but sometimes you do have the Ibli locked in your hand, and then you're just able to free special summon it out of your hand and just do things. And then Avermax is that for the cases that either you need this or you need this instead of the Firewall, or if you just use the Code Talker or Access Code Talker for your combo, but you still need some kind of a board breaker or some kind of a monster that just help you deal with your opponent. And just OTK them next turn, or just deal with them as much as possible and just help you in the grind game. Evermax is really good. And yeah, that's kind of does it for the extra deck as a whole, and does it for the deck profile. Now, of course, up to personal preference, you can change whatever you feels fit, but this is pretty much does it for the list itself. And now we're going to jump right into the 3 combos that I made for you guys. Or at least the 3 combos that I think are very, very important for you to learn, at least for the baseline. So let's jump right into those. Welcome to the combo section. And for the combo section, I'm going to share with you, as I mentioned before, 3 combos. And those particular combos are going to be the combo of 2 cards if you open up with a Cynet Codec and a good starter. Or a combo that shows what happened if you don't open up with a Cynet Codec, but still a way to get to a microcoder and a good starter. And then the third combo, which is just a full power-up combo of 3 cards, which show you what you can do with just the best hand of 3 good cards in your hand, what you're able to do with it. But to start things off for this combo specifically, we're going to use Lady Debug and Cynet Codec, as I mentioned. And these are going to be my starter and the Cynet Codec itself. Now, I'm going to say this right now, is that for the combo itself, for the first one, I'm going to explain a whole lot of things. But for the combo number 2 and 3, because we're going to do some of the same sequences over and over, I'm going to explain these less or if even, because it should be pretty explained as a whole, because we already done those. But now let's get started. So start things off, we're going to normal summon the Lady Debug. Lady Debug will allow us to add to our hand the microcoder. We're then going to activate the Cynet codec. It doesn't really matter which zone, I just like to activate it in the pendulum scales most of the time. And then we're going to use the Lady Debug and the microcoder from our hand to summon the Code Talker to our zone. That mostly I'm just going to say summon it to the right. Right will be just better for you, just for remembrance and for the fact that some of like your extra link will be better if you'll start from the right. So just summon it for your right zone of the extra monster zone. Then we're going to use the effect of Cynet codec because of its effect. And then the effect of microcoder. And then we're going to use the effect of microcoder to enter our hand the Cynet optimization. And then the codec will add to our hand the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. We're then going to activate the Cynet optimization using the effect to get another normal summon to the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, and then turn these two into Transcode Talker, which then will give us the ability to lock our opponent out of Nibiruing us already, and also add to our hand the Code Generator. Then we're going to use the effect of Transcode Talker, special summon back of the Code Talker, and then use it and Code Generator to summon out of our extra deck the Xcode Talker. That will allow us to Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, and Chainlink 3. Chainlink 3 will lock one of our opponent's zones. It doesn't really matter what zone you will lock. It will just mean that you'll have one less zone to work with. And then Chainlink 2 will allow us to send the Dotscaper to our graveyard. And Chainlink 1 will allow us to add the Link Infraflyer into our hand. Then Dotscaper effect will trigger to special summon itself, and then we're going to use it and the transcode to link into Code Talker Inverted. Now, as I mentioned in the deck profile itself, you want in this particular sequence to activate Code Talker Inverted as a Chainlink 1, and then Cynet Codec as a Chainlink 2. Chainlink 2 Cynet Codec will trigger, give to our hand the 4-Mud Skipper, and then the Code Talker Inverted will trigger to special summon the 4-Mud Skipper out of your hand. Then you're going to use these two to your final Code Talker monster, which is going to be the Shooting Code Talker, which then will allow you to activate Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 4-Mud Skipper. 4-Mud Skipper will add to your hand the Pearl Exceed, and then this will add to your hand the Archiver. Then what you're going to do is that you're going to special summon the Link Infraflyer into this zone, and then Sea Archiver is going to be special summoned into this zone. Now, one thing I should mention is that if in this particular sequence you prefer to have an Avermax, you can turn this one into a Salamangreat Bellionix, get a search right now for Sanctuary, and then also use the second Bellionix here, and then link these two into an Avermax. You'll still be able to end the same end board. It's just I prefer specifically to turn these into a firewall. But again, if you want the Avermax, there is the option to you just turn this into a Bellionix, turn these two into this, and the combo will just literally be different. The only thing that will be different is this in the middle. But like I said, I prefer to have the firewall, and I prefer to take these two and turn them into a firewall, which this card will get banished. This one will be sent to the graveyard, and then the effect of Pearl Exceed will finally activate to special summon itself to zone that firewall, and then you summon the other copy out of your deck. Then we're going to use the Link Infraflyer because it's a level 2. Summon the Talkback Lancer. Use Talkback Lancer to tribute the monster its points to because you need to free that zone. And then we're going to summon back the Transcode Talker. Then finally, we're going to turn this into a Bellionix to this zone. And then that will allow us to add to our hand, obviously, the Salamangreat Sanctuary, which apparently I forgot to basically put in my side of cards. But yeah, Salamangreat Sanctuary. And then you activate the Salamangreat Sanctuary and pass the turn to your opponent. And this is pretty much does it for combo number 1. Honestly, this is kind of like a very standard 2-card combo. You ended up with a pretty good end board. You still have the so-called lock, and you have the bounce if you need to, and this to help you as well. Unfortunately, I'm just going to say this right now, it's not as good if you open up with an additional more card, but it's still very, very good to at least play with. And also, this combo is probably one of the better ones because it's Nibiru proof. Now, combo number 2, unfortunately, is not Nibiru proof, which you will see in a second why, but still, very, very good combo. And that's pretty much does it for combo number 1. Let's move on into combo number 2. So, for combo number 2 is the combo that I mentioned before, is that you don't open up with a Signet codec, but you're still able to combo off with 2 cards. And for the 2 cards that we're going to go with, I decided to go with Microcoder, once again, with Lady Debug as well. Now, for the Lady Debug, this one can be either Signet Mining or Cyberse Gadget, whatever you prefer, but I just decided for simplicity's sake, I'm going to go with Lady Debug. But now let's jump right into the combo itself, with starting with the summon of Lady Debug. Lady Debug will allow you to add any Cyberse extender, which I recommend to either be Backup Secretary or Cyberse Converter, just for, purposes. And then we're going to use Microcoder and Lady Debug to summon the Code Talker, as usual. That will allow us to add to our hand, with the effect of Microcoder, the copy of Signet Codec. We're then going to activate the Signet Codec and special summon the Backup Secretary. Backup Secretary in this will turn into a transcode talker. And then we're going to search to our hand the code generator. From here, things are pretty much getting pretty similar, so I'm going to speed through with this. Transcode talker effect will revive back the code talker. And then we're going to use the code talker and the code generator to summon the Xcode talker out of your extra deck. Again, pretty simple. Locking one of your opponent's zone, although in this particular combo it doesn't really matter, and then dumping this into the graveyard and adding this into our hand. This, which is Dotscaper, will special summon itself, and then we're going to use these two to summon Code Talker Inverted. That will allow us to chainlink 1 Code Talker Inverter, chainlink 2 Signet Codec, which will allow us to add to our hand the Format Skipper, and then special summon it by the inverted effect. Use those two to summon the Shooting Code Talker, and then add to our hand the Pearl Exceed with the effect of Format Skipper, and then add to our hand the Sea Archiver with the effect of Signet Codec. Now here is where the combo kind of just go into a different route than the usual. Because normally, you do your usual things and all that stuff, but unfortunately we don't have the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. We cannot have the ability, cannot really lock our opponent. So what can we do in order to fix that? Well, while it might sound a little bit weird, we're actually going to use access code as a basically stepping tool into getting into the Ibli. That's why we also have the so-called Avermax in our extra deck for the option, like I said before, in the extra deck for the deck profile itself, that if you do need to use access code, we still have the Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax to be used as our, go second, just breaking board card if we need to, or, just OTK machine. So, for the most part, unfortunately, we do have to do something like that, and I know it's not the most conventional thing, but sometimes you do need to go into those kind of things. So basically, we're going to use Linker Infraflyer effect first, special summon, and then Sea Archiver will special summon itself by its own effect. Then we're going to use Sea Archiver and Shooting Code to banishing the Sea Archiver and summoning a Firewall. And then triggering the effect of, basically, or should I say not triggering the effect, but using these two to summon the Access Code Talker. Chainlink 1, Firewall Dragon. Chainlink 2, Signet Codec. Chainlink 3, basically Access Code. Access Code we turn into a 5300. We're then going to add to our hand the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, and then we're going to use the effect of Firewall to special summon Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. Now, it's really, really important to mention that you do not summon the Pearl Exceeds in this particular situation, because if you do that, the Chainlink will end with Corruptor Ibli summoning itself, and then the Pearl Exceed cannot summon its other copy out of your deck. So you do need to summon Corruptor Ibli by itself first. This way, you can do this. You can turn Corruptor Ibli into the Talkback Lancer right here, which still giving you the zone that you are able to summon the Pearl Exceed 2 with its own effect, and then summoning the other copy out of your deck. Then you tribute this copy, and summoning out of your graveyard either the X code or transcode. It doesn't really matter which one, it's really depending on the situation. Particularly, I like to summon transcode more for the most part because it just buffs everything, including itself. And then we're going to use this to summon the Belluniques. And of course, I forgot to give to my opponent this card, by the way. I forgot to do that. And then, of course, you have this as a lock as before. So this is a card that I just forgot to give to my opponent. I don't know why I forgot to do that. After the Talkback Lancer to summon it to your opponent. But yeah, this is pretty much what you do. This is kind of what happens. Sometimes you do need to use access code as a tool to basically give you the final search that you need for the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. It's not the most preferred thing in the world, but it is what it is. But that does it for pretty much for combo number 2. Let's move on into combo number 3, which is basically pretty much the best combo that you can do if you open up with 3 very, very good cards. So now let's move on into that. So, for the final combo, as I mentioned, I'm going to share with you the 3-card combo that kind of like shows you what happened if you open up with like kind of like the best case scenario, with like kind of just generally what we did before, with an additional extender of sort. But honestly, this could be done with different kind of sequence of cards, but I decided to go with these 3, which is Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, Signet Mining, and Signet Codec. Honestly, it can be different combination of stuff, but this is kind of like what I decided to go with for this one, because I want to Nibiru lock my opponent early. But now let's get started with the combo itself. So start things off, we're going to activate Signet Codec and then Signet Mining, discarding the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli, and adding to our hand the Cyberse gadget. Normal summon gadget, special summon back the Ibli, and then turn these 2, and of course this is sent to the graveyard, these 2 into Code Talker. Chainlink 1 Codec, Chainlink 2 Gadget, Chainlink 3 Ibli, which will allow us to summon Ibli directly to our opponent immediately, summoning to our side of the field a token, which can be used later, and then adding to our hand the Microcoder. Then, we're going to use Microcoder and Code Talker to summon the Transcode Talker once again to our side of the field, triggering the effect of Signet Codec and Microcoder to give us the Signet Conflict and use the Code Generator. Then, use the effect of Transcode Talker, summon out of our graveyard the Code Talker, and then use it and the Generator to summon the X-Code per usual out of your extra deck. And dumping to our graveyard the Dotscaper, locking one of our opponent's zones, and add to your hand the Link Infraflyer. This will allow us to summon the Dotscaper out of our graveyard, and then I'm going to use these 2 to summon the Converter. Then, we're going to use the effect of Signet Codec as a Chainlink 2, Converter as a Chainlink 1, add to your hand the Format Skipper as usual, special summon the Format Skipper, and use these 2 to summon Shooting Code Talker. Then use the effect of basically Signet Codec and Format Skipper, adding to our hand the Pearl Exceed, and add to your hand the Sea Archiver. And honestly, basically here is where things are getting interesting. So we're going to use the effect of the Shooting Code Talker. We're going to use the Shooting Code Talker and the Transcode, throwing them both away to summon the Firewall Dragon. This can also be an Avermax, but mostly, like I said, I prefer to be a Firewall Dragon. Then Pearl Exceed will trigger, special summoning itself, and another copy directly from the deck. And then Link Infraflyer, special summoned to this zone. And then we're going to use Link Infraflyer, summon into this zone, the Talkback Lancer. Talkback Lancer will trigger this, or should I say tribute this, summon back the Transcode Talker, and then we're going to use the effect of Sea Archiver to special summon itself to one of these zones. Or should I say the last place that you can. Then we're going to turn this into a Belluniques, giving us also the search into Salman Great Sanctuary, and then turning this into a Lingeribo, giving us another form of disruption of sort. and then setting the Cyanide Conflict and activating this. Now this is pretty much, like I said, the more powerful combo that you can do, because with one additional card, you're also able to end up with a Conflict and a Lingaribo, giving you the option to have a deal with, things like Evenly Matched, and then just any power spell that is a little bit of annoying. So not only you got the bounce, but you also got this and this. Now, of course, it's really depending on your hand and what you have specifically, but this is pretty much like my favorite combo to do. If I open up with this, I'm very, very happy. It's my favorite way to kind of like play, locking my opponent from debuting from early, and then having the ability to have these as supporters beside of the firewall itself. Of course, you can, like I said a million of times, summon the Avermax if you want to instead, or you can even just skip on the Lingaribo and be one of these to be a firewall, and this in the middle here being an Avermax. But that's how I like to run the list, as I like specifically. If you want to change things, up to you. But that's pretty much does it for the combo section, and now we'll move on into the closing words and close up this video. Honestly, it's been a very, very long one, but yeah, let's jump right into that to not waste any more time. So before we close up the video, as usual, I'm going to talk about the next videos that are going to come up, and also giving you a little bit of a choice of what you want to come after. And for the next week, we have Teamndl coming up for us as a deck that's been chosen from, the previous stuff, with the Code Talker being kind of like one vote short, so I decided to basically put it as next week. But for your other choices after that, and, for 2 weeks, like the week after Teamndl, to give me a little bit of time to prepare, we have 4 lists that I'm going to let you choose whatever you want to and you feel specific that you want to see. It's either going to be Unchained, Fluffles, Lightsworn, and the final one, I forgot for a second what I wanted to do. Shiranuis. These are the 4 options that I'm going to give to you. You are more than welcome to choose which one of those you see fit, that you want to see the most, and that will come up after Teamndl, which coming up next week. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Of course, there is going to be also the review next week, hopefully, of Amazement. I'm going to talk about them with the Dawn of Majesty support as well. But like I said, did with the Utopia stuff, I'm going to basically just like split these apart, doing the important stuff for us for Lightning Overdrive first, and then the Dawn of Majesty at the end, and kind of an application of both. And you're more than welcome to check that out when it come up next week. And also the new series that's going to start with Red Eyes Jaculo and myself, which I still need to edit things down. And I'm hoping next week it will be ready for your enjoyment, and you will be able to critique us for whatever. So we'll be able to improve things for the episode after that, and then start implementing the changes. But that's pretty much does it for this so-called video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you find it really useful for you if you haven't played with Code Talkers, and you also find out that the combos are being helpful for you if you don't really know how to play with the deck. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. And if you did, and you enjoyed and want to see more, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.